Welcome to Minds on a Mission, the podcast where we explore the journeys that challenge us, change us, and chart the best course for our best selves. You can find us on pretty much any streaming platform that you choose. And I'm your host, Samantha Bailey, an entrepreneur and content creator. And tonight's lovely guest is Michele Coy.
Hi,
Woo!
Samantha. Thank you. I'm excited to be on tonight.
I'm excited to have you. I know this has been in the works for a little while.
It has.
It has. I feel like it's been so long since we first initially set that up.
Yes. But this is exciting. We're here today and let's impact your audience.
Yes, and it's almost Thanksgiving, guys. We're giving you some special golden nuggets right before Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. A little gratitude and blessings for your holiday.
Yes, I love it. So, how are you today?
I am well. How are you, Samantha?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like things are really going. Definitely been pretty busy, but I really like it. I like to stay busy, so.
Yes. I like to stay productive.
Mm,
We have that tendency of always saying we're busy. However, if we're busy, are we really moving the ball forward or are we being distracted?
mm. I get that because it's like you could be busy and be like spend 2 hours a your day just like scrolling, and I'm like, oh, I'm busy today. Yeah, I feel like for
Yes.
me, I say that, but like I guess I would say I'm meaning more productive because I definitely feel like I've got a lot of things happening right now between work and then I have side things that I'm doing and trying to spend time with family. So like this tomorrow and Sunday, I'm gonna go spend time with my grandmother. So it's just a lot. It's a lot, but I'm very grateful. Speaking of Thanksgiving, I
Yes.
I'm very grateful for what's going on right now and for this podcast and just to get to meet people like you and get to know more about you. So
Absolutely. And that's the reason I love doing podcasts is just meeting so many different entrepreneurs and content creators. You just never know who you're going to meet that you can connect someone else with.
mm, I feel like too it's and I've noticed it just happened. I don't know why, but I'm not complaining about it. But I've noticed a lot of my guests are women, which I feel like a woman and a woman, that connection's like so different. It's like you're like, wow, I really get you. Like and it's just been great to meet other women who are in business and to learn more about their stories and a lot of the people are older than me because I'm only 21 and they've got time in the game, and it's great to know like, okay, this is like kind of what I should look for when going in my journey. So
Absolutely. And I love how you said that it's your journey because so often people don't realize that we are on a journey and we're shooting for a destination. However, the journey and the path that we take is often so different than we anticipated.
right, I completely agree with that. And so, speaking of journeys, I would love to know for anyone who may not know you, if you could just share a little bit about yourself so we can know a little bit where your journey has been.
Yes. So I have finally landed as a business and leadership strategist. And this journey has taken me 6 years to land solidly on this foundation. So I spent 18 years of my life in accounting and finance, or 28 years, excuse me, 18 years with an accounting firm. And I landed at a tribal government, and that tribal government position was life changing for me because I found so much out about myself through that journey. And that's what really caused me to take the leap of faith because I realized through that journey, I was meant to help more than just the person in front of me. And I was able to connect tribal members with resources. And I felt so passionate about that. And so that started my journey. And my journey landed me first 4 months on the couch, burned out from working 60 plus hours from the age of 16 to the age of 42. And I was always workaholic. And my nervous system just crashed. when I gave it that break. And so it took me a while to build my confidence into the business and leadership strategist. I knew I wanted to be a coach. However, I didn't have the confidence. So I fell into the bookkeeping role where, like you said, you help a lot of women, or women tend to be on your podcast. Women were who I served. All of the business owners tended to be women. And I started to find a little bit more out and jumped into money mindset because I realized women struggled with finding that value and that worth and pivoting, especially during COVID. And that's where I was helping most of the women was during COVID. And so I went back during COVID and got a master's in neuro linguistic programming, which is your communication with your subconscious mind. And it helped me as a person that loves to put puzzles together. It helped me start to put puzzle pieces together, which landed me as a really good business and leadership strategist because I can hear things from people that they may not be saying and help them to overcome their limiting beliefs.
Wow. I mean,
So,
that's a lot. That's a lot that you have
yes.
accomplished. And there's some things that I want to unpack there. But my first thought was I've come across, like, I've seen would you say neuro linguistic programming?
Yes.
Okay. I've seen a couple of things pop up about this, and for anyone who may have been like me, could you explain a little bit about that? What exactly is it, and what entails when you decide to enroll into this?
So I decided to enroll in this because I had worked in my area. We had meetup groups where you could go and try different things. And I met a ex-detective that worked in hypnosis and NLP. So he was teaching us some of the techniques that they used to work with individuals. And so what it really boils down to is really looking for patterns in people's speeches. What type of words are they using? And trying to find patterns within your words because your subconscious says words for you that you don't necessarily see the patterns that they're showing. And so it's really helping you to learn about body language. It's helping you to learn about words that are powerful and can hit people's subconscious minds, but then also listening to the words people are saying. And so it helps me understand, like, I can listen to words to see if you're a visual learner, if you're a kinesthetic learner, if you use the word feels, are you um, you're a person that likes to touch and feel things. So you're a kinesthetic. So you're more likely a person that wants hands on instruction. Or are you a person that can read something? So, or do you need to hear something? So are you visual, audio,
Right.
or kinesthetic? And so I incorporated that into my trainings because as I listen to people, I adjust my trainings to meet who's in the audience.
Right. And do you think that um you would then, with doing this, learn how to master emotional intelligence? Because isn't that kind of like the same thing? I've only heard a little bit about that, but I know from what I've gathered, it's kind of like that where you're able to understand different people, how different people process things, how their emotions are. So I'm assuming that's kind of like hand in hand with each other. It's like you learn this, so now you can master emotional intelligence, and it's kind of like almost one. You know what I mean?
Yes, they are different.
Right.
However, with emotional intelligence, you can see different compassions. You
Mm,
can understand
okay.
if somebody's in survival mode. You're going to talk to somebody that's in victimhood or survival mode different than you are going to talk to somebody that is very self-aware. And I once was working with a client and she worked in the service industry and she said, I keep putting these inspirational memes out there, and my technicians just don't get it. And I said, do you realize that your technicians are here to, from what you've told me, They're here to grab a paycheck because they have a family to feed, and that's what they're here for. I said, they are not as self aware as you or your leadership team. And if you're trying to inspire them that way, that's not going to work because you're talking to them in a different communication type.
Right. Okay. Yes, yeah, those are both things that I've heard of, and again, with the emotional intelligence thing, I knew a little bit because I have been to an event where they kind of talked about it a little bit, but that was just something I was curious about if you were to take that NLP, if that would kind of help you with that as well, if you wanted to master being emotionally intelligent.
It would help. I won't
Right.
say that just because you've taken NLP that it depends on the person. If you
Right.
can use those techniques to apply so that you have more empathy and compassion and can understand and meet people where they're at, yes, then that will work. Some people will take it and may not be able to apply everything.
Mm,
So it just depends, and it's how much you want to invest because there is a practitioner level and there's a master's level. And the master's level goes much deeper.
right. Perfect. Well, I appreciate you explaining that because that was just something that I kind of thought. It made me think of emotional intelligence, and from the little bit I knew about it, so I just kind of was wondering how that would kind of coincide. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate you giving us insights on that. And
absolutely.
so I another thought I had when you were sharing a bit about yourself was that I very much relate to being the workaholic. I feel like I don't know what rest is. It's so hard for me to rest because I'm like, I mean, same for, and that's where with the, um, being productive thing is like, I always feel I'm like not allowed to just have rest time because I'm like, you're not being productive. You could have taken that time to, and so for me, sometimes it's hard because I'm like, you're allowed to have some time where you're not always working because in my head, I'm just always like, I gotta work all day. Like today, I worked 8:15 to 7, and then, I have podcasts, and then in my head, I'm like, "Oh, well, you should be able to rest now, you worked all day," but no, I know myself, I
Yeah.
won't. I'll do
Yes.
something else right after this.
Yes. And I've noticed now I give myself permission. So for me, I was a person that wanted to be productive, but I also had a busyness syndrome.
Mhm,
And so I had to learn, like, I've now just within the last 6 months really switched up and taken the time to say, I don't take clients before 10 a.m. because I've realized between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., that's my creative time. And that's also my time to meditate and to just breathe and get grounded for the day before I can get started. And when I can have that time to get grounded, I notice my reaction and my response to things is so much different than if I have one networking group that I have to go to that I go to at 7:15. And so I'm like, on those days are long days for me because I also have accountability groups at 8 o'clock at night. And so it's a 14-hour day for me, but I can feel when I don't have that chance to do some meditation. And so I've learned that I have to pause to actually speed up in the business. Because once you pause, it's giving yourself that space to be creative
mm,
and to listen and to understand, like, am I going in the right direction? Just because I'm busy doing this, is this the right thing for me? And oftentimes we go in one direction and we learn that we should have gone in a different direction,
mhm,
but we don't give ourselves that space to take time out, pause, do some reflection, and ask ourselves, is this truly where my heart wants to go?
right. And I feel like I'm working on that. I'm kind of in the spot of, like, trying to work in time to myself and, like, 'cause I feel like it's so easy to be like, "Oh, I'm just do this and do all these things." And then I'm just like, well, I also, there's certain things that I know I want to do that maybe wouldn't be considered productive, like painting. I like to paint sometimes, or I like to crochet sometimes, and it's like may not be something productive, but it's just time to myself. And so, one of my favorite things is writing. That's where something I really tried to allow myself time to just. I like to write, but even then, I'm like, it's not really relaxing because I'm writing out like to-do lists or things like that. But I know it's something that I don't have to rush the process. I can just sit there. I like to make it all cute and like do different colors, and so I'm really working on like having that balance of like just having some, even if it's not a lot. I think you should at least have, 15 minutes to yourself. If you have none, like if you don't allow time to yourself, I would say at least start with like just 15 minutes. Set out time to just do nothing. Do whatever you want to do. You want to color, doodle, do something that's like unproductive that, makes you happy. Um,
And let me just tell you, sometimes those most unproductive times where we feel like we're being most unproductive are actually sometimes the most productive.
mhm,
Because oftentimes there was a day last week where I just sat and I was just sitting and watching, the nature. I was just watching the trees. And I had a whole entire program that I want to release next year downloaded. And I just was sitting there and it's like, oh, and I had a piece of paper next to me and it's like, here's everything. And I just couldn't believe it. I just wrote it all out because it just came to me because
mm,
I was silent and I was taking the time to listen to myself. And my subconscious mind just kept saying, here's some ideas for you. And
right.
so it's then up to me to listen to those and actually implement them.
Mm. I feel like too when you have like my favorite thing is like stream of consciousness writing where you can just sit down and just like let everything flow out, and it's like I feel like sometimes we're trying to be very structured and like no, it has to be a certain way, or and I get very much like that. I'm OCD and I'm like no, it has to be in a format, and I get way too just in my head. But I've really worked and I'm like just whatever it is on your head just out on the paper. Then after, once it's all out there, then you can go and figure out, okay, this is kind of how I want to have it organized,
Yes.
and then rewrite it. So that's kind of how I've worked on it. Um, and I had another thought. I don't know if you know Alex Hermosi.
Yes. I've seen a lot of his things on
Right.
Facebook.
So I was wondering your thoughts on this because I forget exactly what he says, but he says that um you shouldn't have a morning routine, you should have like a money routine or something like that. And he is saying that he doesn't necessarily agree with because a lot of people like that, what is it called? Your power hour, right? Where a
Yeah.
lot of people take time, like for me, when I've been working on it, it's like I want those things, like you said, I want to have time for meditation, I want to work out, I want some time for some journaling, for reflections. Like I just want to have that time where I can clear my head, I can really work on centering myself and getting rid of all those extra noises. But from the videos that I'd seen, he's against this. He says you should that first hour you should work on your business. If you have to work, that day, you should work on your business that first hour. So I was wondering your thoughts because I know some people maybe think that, oh, maybe you don't need time to do that. You don't need to meditate or whatever in the morning to become successful, which I'm sure in a way that's true, you don't have to. But I really think there's something about having that time, especially with meditation. I really think meditation is so helpful. That really is a key thing when you see a lot of people who are successful. They have time like that to themselves where they're just reflecting and they're not doing that. Oh, I need to work on my business for that first hour when I wake up. So I was kind of curious your thoughts on that because I don't know if I necessarily agree with his side on that.
So I think it could be used as a combination. So there are
Right.
mornings where I will grab my laptop instead of my phone and I will meditate for 15 minutes. And then if I am in a flow, I will start working on my business.
Hmm. Okay.
So it could be that I just am writing different ideas out. I might be doing some emails, but I allow myself to really listen to what I need at that moment. Because there's sometimes where I will say, I'll listen to my body, and my body says, you just need to rest. So I will take an extra 30 minutes and just close my eyes and do some meditations. Where other days are like, okay, you're in the flow right now, start writing, start being creative, create those programs, create those outlines. So I think it just really, you have to listen to your body and listen to yourself and
Mhm.
tune into what you need at the moment. Because I've tried doing the 5 a.m. routines and I realize I'm a 7 a.m. person. I wake up at 7 a.m. and then I start my mornings. If I try to be that 5 a.m. person, I get brain fog and I see myself really bottoming out around 2 p.m. And so I've learned to adjust my schedule and my routines so that my creative time is from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then again from 6 to 9 at night. So that's when I'm writing. That's when I'm creating programs. That's when I'm just deciding, it might be some social media content. That's when I do that.
Right. I agree
So,
with the kind of like the mix. Like for me, mine like I like to schedule out what I'm gonna do, and I kind of have the same thing of like what I want to do every morning. I'm Again, with the OCD, it's kind of hard for me to just, and everyone's different. It's just for me, I don't if I don't have like a set, this is what I'm gonna do. I get so stuck in the, well, what do I do now? How do I like? I get so in the head, and then I work on like tons of different things, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. So for me, I really had to be like, no, this is exactly what you're gonna do every morning, and kind of like you said, thinking those things of like what is it that I want to work towards? And so mine is like a mix of like a good amount of that is um kind of working on like I have time for meditation, for a little bit of yoga, and then for me because I work long shifts and I get out at night, I would rather work out in the morning because I know when I get home, I'm not gonna have that energy to work out. I'm gonna make excuses. So mine has been to work out in the morning, and right now it's a smaller goal because I'm getting back into working out. I stopped working out for a while. So mine's like 2 days a week. So I've been kind of having 2 days where I get up at that time that I want to, which it's 4 a.m. It's not a lovely time.
yes,
But the thing that's crazy is I always say I'm not a morning person. I always like I'm a night owl. I don't like to be a morning person. But I'm really working towards shifting my mindset and saying that I can be a morning person because I know that the things that I can get done in that time before work, I always feel so much better, not only just emotionally, but physically because I've taken that time for myself versus the other days. Like today, I woke up late. I woke up at 8 and I'm supposed to be at work for 8:15, and I had to rush and get ready and I was stressed out. And I look at that and I'm like, I love the mornings where I get up, I take the time for myself. I don't feel rushed to get ready for work, and I allow myself time as well for working on my course that I have courses I'm trying to complete, and for doing any side things I'm doing, which one of them is appointment setting. So I have time of focus on myself and I'm focusing on that business as well.
yes, yes. And it's just learning that balance and giving yourself grace when what you have planned isn't what your body wants. And that's learning that adaptability and flexibility has been key for me because then I won't beat myself up and go into that negative self talk that so many business owners, especially women business owners, will go into because they didn't complete what they needed to have, what they deemed that they needed to have done that day. And so there's days where if I'm working really long, it's like, okay, give yourself grace. This isn't working this morning. let's try to put this in, at your other 6 to 9 p.m. when you're
Mhm.
working on your other creative time
Right. Yeah, that's
as
that's how
well.
I am because I'm still trying to get into that schedule, and like I realize the schedule I want to have is probably deemed as crazy. People are like, with what I want to but the thing that is for me is that I have so much I want to get done, and the issue is I still work a 9 to 5, so I spend most of my day working for someone else. And when I'm, actually get up in the morning and at night, I just want to focus on me. I just want to do the stuff that makes me happy. And so it's hard because I'm like I know that I'm cutting out that sleep that I should be getting because I'm just so excited to just have the time to myself and to just do what I
Yes.
want to do. And it's like, I'm like, I know that I should not be going to bed at 12 and then saying I'm going to wake up at 4. And I'm like, I know that's crazy, but I get so excited when I get home. I'm like, now it's me time. Now I could do what I want to do. And it's never just resting because I'm like, I have goals that I want to achieve. I have dreams. I have so many things I want to do. And so I know that there are things I need to sacrifice, like sleep, if I want to get there because I work all day.
Yes.
I need to move in that time to work on those things,
Absolutely.
which just feels like a lot because I mean, deep down, like when I get home, I'm like, do I really want? I would rather go lay in that bed and go to sleep because I'm tired. I've been at work all day.
Yes.
But it's that thing inside me just like hungry. It's like I want more.
Yes.
And so
It-
I always push through it. I'm like, nope, you're gonna sit at your desk, you're gonna work on stuff. And if I don't, if I really am tired, I'll let myself go to bed. I mean, I try not to, beat myself up about it because
yeah.
like you said, some days my body's really just can't take it. It's like you're burnt out, you've been doing too much, take a nap or something, go lay
Yes.
down.
Yes. It's that timeout period where if we don't listen to our body, that's when we are going to, that's where disease comes in and disease. It's where we've overworked our body because we aren't listening to it. And so
Right.
that's part of it is that whole mind, body, spirit is making sure all of those are together in balance, whatever that balance may look like for you at that moment
Right.
as well.
Yeah, I agree because I just think that sometimes it's just it's always something you could just feel it. You're like, there's some days where I'm like, till I get home and I'm like, oh, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to get stuff done. And then there's other nights where I look at that bed and I'm like, this is all I want to do tonight. Like, I want
Yeah.
to go lay down. And so, yeah, I mean, sometimes I do get a little stressed out because I'll be like, "I'm just gonna lay here and close my eyes," because I have a nighttime routine. I have, acne, really bad acne, so I have to do a routine and wash my face, and I have, like, medication I have to put on, but, like, lately, with how much I've been doing, there's nights where I'm just so tired that I'm like, "No, I'll do it. I just need to rest for 1 second." Next thing I know, I'm asleep, and I wake up the next
Yes.
morning, and I'm like, "No, you didn't do your routine."
Yes.
But then I have to be like I'm like, "It's fine. It happened for a reason." And, obviously I'm trying to prevent that because I don't want to miss my routine because then it messes with my skin. I have some coming up because I've done that a couple times the last couple weeks. I've just been so tired. But again, too, like you said, it's like having that grace of like realizing like it's gonna happen, especially in this period where I'm still getting used to with everything that I'm doing. So,
Yes.
just having to be like, it's fine, but obviously I want to work on it because I don't want to keep doing that.
Absolutely. And there is a point where right now you're in that phase where you're just like, yes, yes, yes. And there's going to be a time where you're saying, okay, I've got to put a boundary
Mhm.
because what can I say no to? Because it's not moving me towards where I want to go. And so it's like, okay. And I've been hitting that lately and just saying, nope, this doesn't align with where I'm going, what I want to do, and what my values are. And
Mhm.
so, yes, it's a hard lesson to learn, especially as an entrepreneur, because
Right.
we're always wanting to do, and we have to remember that we're human beings, that we have to be sometimes. And We don't want to allow that human doings to do what it did to me, and end up being burned out on the couch, not able to move. I think all I could do is there was weeks where I just stayed in my pajamas just because I was so burned out. So I always like to just share that for young entrepreneurs. Don't allow yourself to get so burned out that you can't help the people that you really are truly meant to help.
Mm. Yeah, and it's too, it's like I'm trying to find that balance because, like, I do acknowledge, I feel like I definitely I feel like I've gotten over the period of, like, I feel like when you kinda first get started, for me, it was a lot of, like, people wanted, "Can I go? Let's get on a call, let's do this, so let me teach you about the," and it was, like, being pulled everywhere, and I was trying to figure out what I'm doing, and people are like, "No, I think you should do this. No, I think you should do this," and then, I felt like I just was being, like, yanked, like, so many different ways, and I finally, I've gotten over that period. I definitely feel like the things I'm working on are definitely in alignment. I really took the time to be like, what are things that actually would bring me closer to where I want to be? And so one of the biggest things was I was working at a daycare. I worked at a daycare for 2 years. And I thought, I don't want to work for other people, but while I have to, because I'm still in this period of I have to, pay bills, but still trying to work towards that other, the other overarching goals that will get me out of that. What is something I could do that would be more in alignment with that, long-term goal? So I finally, made the career transition. I was scared to, you're comfortable and you're like, oh, well, what if I fail? Like, this, like for me, now I work at a credit union and I was like, this is my first big girl job. Like, what if they don't like me or, all these things? But I definitely feel so much happier now that I've switched jobs and, I've been there for a couple months and obviously, I don't plan on working there for the rest of my life. I wanna have my own businesses and everything, but I love that I'm at the point where I acknowledge, although I have to right now work a regular job, I'm working somewhere where I'm actually happy. I'm not burnt out. I'm getting paid what I'm worth. I actually feel like I'm valued. And so that just has helped my mindset so much because I was so depressed at that other job. It was toxic and everything. And, being somewhere where you're like, I actually feel like there's a family here, like, I'm actually cared for and I'm treated, with value. It really starts to feel like you're in alignment with what you wanna do.
Absolutely. That environment is so key to your success because if you're not in a place where you feel like you're valued and um, a good book to read, if anybody's looking for a book about that value, is Worthiness from Jamie Kern Lima, where she really goes through what that self worth and self value are. And that one's a really great book for people that are in that spot that they're not sure about their value and their worthiness.
Right.
And but that environment is so key to any business that you're in, because if you're not happy in your environment, you're not hearing good things, you're not sensing, you don't feel loved and encouraged, it can really tamper somebody's success is as an entrepreneur.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that because my friend, I love her. She's a fan of Jamie Kernlima, and I don't know all that much about her, but my friend loves her, and she actually just finished listening to that audiobook, the Worthiness one. So I that made me immediately think of her. And I definitely have to give that to a listen. She said that it was very good.
Yes. So Jamie's story is she was doing cosmetics out of her living room, and she was trying to get onto QVC, and she kept trying and they kept telling her no, and then she finally got in, and she was so worried she was going to fail, and they give you like 10 minutes to be on air, and she's like, if they don't like you, then your 10 minutes gets cut short. And she ended up selling, sold out all of the products her first time there, kept being asked to come back. And she ended up selling her cosmetic company to L'Oreal.
Wow.
And so it was just her perseverance and resiliency to keep going is just, it's amazing to watch everything that she had gone through to get where she was today.
Yeah, and I really connect with that, and that's how I'll show you. It's funny. This is the only tattoo I have, but it's flowers with a band-aid, and the meaning behind it is resilience and growth, and
Mhm.
that's really something that connected with me. And I'd been wanting to get one for a while, and I just was like, I feel like I'm a completely different person. Like I've changed so much. I really felt like I've had a lot of resilience. And so when I came across this tattoo and the meaning behind it, I just was like, I'm going to get that. It's beautiful. I love flowers. Flowers always remind me of my grandmother. She loves to plant flowers. She has a beautiful garden. And so, yeah, I eventually got that. I got that a few months ago, and it's cute. It's just a little.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I definitely feel like that's a big thing that is really important to me of how far I've come. And just like her, like I feel like I really persevered a lot with a lot of things in my life.
Yes. And it's looking back at that and seeing how it pushes us forward, and it becomes part of our story and part of our why we're, even wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah, that why is super important. And I don't really post in this group anymore. It's not really a shout out, but it just made me think. I have a group on Facebook that I made a while ago. But the reason I mention it is because I actually made a worksheet on figuring out your why. So if
Mhm.
anyone wanted access to that, it's on there, and I could share that with this episode as well. Because I feel like that is something that if you're like, okay, I know I want more from my life. What is it? How do I figure this out? That is your first step, because you have to know your why before you figure anything else out. What is the driving force behind whatever you're going to do? And that's, it's the first step. Doesn't mean, it's still for me. I still haven't exactly figured out. And the thing is, you're gonna change what you want to do so many times. You're gonna be like, oh, but I want to do this, but this, and eventually you'll just click. And I know that, but my issue is I'm just like, I want to get there now. I want to be there. Like I just want to,
Yes.
and I'm like, slow down. But I just get so excited because when you see, the people like on the stages and how impactful it is. I know I'm a step there because this podcast, I feel like that's a step towards that, of being on that stage and being in front of all those people and getting to really impact a lot of people's lives. I know that this is the first step into becoming a public speaker. That's part of what I want to do. So it makes me feel
Yes.
really good because I'm like, I'm in alignment. Like,
Yes. Absolutely. And that's funny you say that because I was in a program, and the intention of the program was like, set a miracle intention. And my miracle intention is to be a highly sought after motivational and inspirational worldwide speaker. And through going through the process, I realized I already am. My stage is not what I anticipated, but my stage is through podcasting,
mm,
because I was on a podcast in Ireland. I was in a podcast in the UK. So I've already been on a worldwide stage. And
hmm,
so it's helping us to see that different perspective, that our stage may not be exactly what we anticipate, but we may have already made it to that stage, and we may be already making that impact.
mm,
But it's through reflection that we will see that we've already been successful, and that our stage is, we've met the first part of our stage. The
Right.
next stage is actually traveling to those different areas
Mhm.
to be on those stages.
Right. And yeah, that's my thing too of like I really want, and that's again, it's a thing of thinking of like realizing like there are steps behind it. This is the first step. Then like you said, the next step, like for me, I've never been on someone else's. That would be my next step because I haven't been the one to be interviewed. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like in I would love to know your input on this. Okay, do you have your own podcast?
I am relaunching a
Yeah.
podcast starting in 2025. I did have one. I have one on money mindset that I did with somebody here in my area. And so I have 36 episodes on money mindset, 24 for the personal mindset, and 12 towards your business mindset.
Hmm,
And I also had a podcast I called Transformational Tidbits for a little bit, but that was mainly just me. Um,
right,
but I have been on a variety of different podcasts as well.
right. So I have two questions with that. My
Okay.
my first one is, okay, so you've been on other podcasts and you've had your own, right?
Yes.
Right. So which one would you say, and neither are easy, but which one would you say almost feels easier, being the host or being the one being interviewed?
So I think
Or maybe better wording, which one feels more natural?
I think being interviewed for me is easier. I can come up with a lot of content. I am one that basically just gets on Zoom and will just talk. And I'm like, well, I'm trusting that whatever is coming out is what somebody needs to hear. But being interviewed, that's easy for me. I know my story, and I can answer pretty much any question. And I will be very authentic and vulnerable because I feel is if we can be authentic and vulnerable, it helps our audiences relate to us and helps them say, okay, if she can do it or he can do it, then I can do it.
And that's how I felt, which was um part of the reason I was interested in that because obviously, like I said, I haven't been the one to be interviewed, but for me as a host, I feel like that being the one to be interviewed wouldn't it would feel more natural to me because I would say I'm like I definitely am a little bit of a yapper. I like to talk, but I also like to listen. I've worked really hard on having a balance because I was very much someone who would talk when they were nervous. When I'm like awkward silence and I would just yap and and it would just be like sharing about myself and I know that part of that is because I get really passionate about meeting people, getting to know people, and sharing my story. So I feel like that wouldn't be something that would be hard for me. I feel like it's the host part because I feel like it's a little harder to create questions than to be the one to answer them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, because you don't know, who you may be getting on the
Mm,
other side and how are they going to be able to take the questions that you're asking, and are they going to just be like one or two words, or are
mm,
they going to tell a story? And so it's hard for you to know if they're even going to relate to your audience. And so I can understand on the podcast side, as the host, how it can be difficult to ask the right questions and know which questions to ask. And how is that host gonna, or how is that guest going to respond?
right. Yeah. I definitely feel like that's kind of my thoughts on that. And I honestly I forgot that other question. Trying to think because I remember it was something, but uh so kind of when did you start that initial podcast?
My podcast was it 3 or 4 years ago, maybe? And I was trying to be consistent. then my business was starting to grow like in person. So I was struggling to find the time. I was not scheduling the time to record a podcast. And then I lost at that time I was with Spotify and no, I was with Medium FM and they got bought out by Spotify. And I couldn't figure out my password to get back in to upload episodes. And so I finally got them both connected to my Spotify account now so I can go back through and re-release some new get ready to do some new podcasts.
I like that. Yeah, and I feel like too, it can kind of be hard to gauge when a good time to kind of set things up. Like for me, when I first started, I was like, I'm not sure how many episodes I want to do, or um, how long I wanted to be, or what exactly it it was. But I feel like I like the days are pretty much every Monday and Friday, and I don't work Mondays, so that usually works out. I usually got more time on Mondays to kind of prepare, and then Friday I get out at 7, so I've got a little bit of time in between. But I really like it because it gives me something to look forward to every week, and getting to learn from other people. So and also sharing too. But sometimes I always get in my head. I'm like, I feel like I'm like, I don't know what to share. But one thing I could always say is, although I haven't figured out all those other things that make, what the business would be, because I want to have businesses, but still figuring those things out. I know that I've worked a lot on mindset, and that's very much something that I could talk forever about, and give tips. So I definitely feel like I do have a way of contributing as well.
Absolutely. We all experience things at different ages, and just to hear how youth are experiencing it now is powerful because you guys bring a different perspective that, I'm going to be turning 50 in a year and a half. So to hear from somebody that's 21 and is so excited about life, that brings so much value to me because I can look at it and say, oh, that explains X, Y, or Z, or oh, I never thought about it that way. One of the things I did, I was doing a year long program with Darren Hardy. He's a leadership coach, and it
Really?
was called the Hero's Journey. And the first you he does a recording and then he gives you assignments. In the first week's recording was to go out and interview three people from three different generations. So that and he gave you a list. I think there was 5 pages of questions you could ask. Well, I decided this was my third time doing this course. And I was like, I'm going to throw this out on Facebook. I actually interviewed 25 people between the ages of 26 and 80 or maybe 92. I can't remember the gentleman. He was 92, but just the things that I heard and the things that I was able to learn and experience because they said like one of the questions is what historical event impacted your life the most? And just hearing 25 people tell you a event that affected them. And so it was really interesting and what they could contribute to the impact. I'm actually at some point going to turn all those interviews into a book about the different ways to communicate with the different generations and help people understand how different where you grew up, the events that happened, you know, around you, how they impact how you communicate today. And so it was a really eye-opening experience to be able to learn from so many different individuals where they got to today and how that journey took place.
Yes, and that right there is exactly why I started this podcast. I mean, and it's nice to hear someone's kind of had a similar experience, really the wonderful things that happens when you get to meet other people and really, get to know them and about their stories and where they came from. And I definitely am someone who's, like, interested in psychology. I love to know, things like that. Like, tell me, I always say it, like, in some of the episodes, I like to ask them, like, a little bit about their childhood and kind of it's cool to see of, like, okay, so this is kinda how you grew up, and this is kinda what you've been through, and it kind of shows me, I like, "Okay, this makes sense." And a lot of things, or the biggest one that I've noticed, is there's always at some point that specific pain point that brings them right back around to that full circle thing of where they really feel in alignment. And
Yeah.
it's just beautiful. I love it.
Yes. Absolutely.
It's
It's just seeing how life is really happening for us and not to us. And even though we go through bad experiences or we go through a trauma, it's they're designed to help us so that we can help others or we could find something um, that really helps us reflect on our life. For me, it was around responsibility. I took me 3 months to become a accept that I should be a business and leadership coach because like you said I had to work through some mindset issues around responsibility.
mm,
So,
right. And I feel like mine, like, I since I've kind of come across this, um, kind of reflecting on the episodes and things that I've noticed. I talked a little bit about this on the last one. I think that I did last night, was that now I've kind of seen that and seen it in my life, realizing, okay, so one of my biggest interests is real estate. Realizing that, from 8 to 13, I was homeless, and realizing that that was my pain point. Why I'm so interested in this and feel so called to this is because I didn't have a home for that time, and realizing that I could be able to provide homes for other people who aren't able to get it through the traditional way of going to a bank, and maybe they don't have a good credit score, and realizing that I can be that middleman who can help those people. And it just really made me think of, like, it's so full circle. It's always so full circle.
yes, absolutely. And it's funny that you're in, I guess it's not funny, but it's your journey is now taking you through the credit union. And so you're in the banking industry. And so you get to hear stories through
Mhm,
your interactions. And it's just helping you along your path so that when you get to that real estate market where you're helping people, you're building connections through the bank, you're finding resources.
mhm.
And it's all these other things that are going to help you to help other people later in life. And you don't even
Exactly.
realize you're building those resources along the way.
Right. And that was the thing I really looked at when I was like, I want to switch fields. Like I said, where I realized, like, right now I have to work this regular job, but what could I do that would be in alignment? When I came across this, and again, it's always like perfect timing. I was like, I've looked for jobs. Why can't I find a job? And trying to find a new job. I'm not happy here. I've been so through and up and down. But I was at the perfect point where I really felt happy with what I was doing with myself, and I was able to receive that energy that, the universe was giving me, and the job just came out of nowhere. I seen it, I thought, I'm not gonna make it. I mean, it's a professional job, I have no experience. Why would they want me? But my biggest thing has been, I don't care how many limiting beliefs I have, I'm going to do it anyways, because there's that thing deep inside me that's screaming for more. And I know that if I back out and I continue to repeat those patterns that I had, that I'm just going to keep self-sabotaging, and I'm not going to get to where I want to be. And, thinking about that thing of, like, there's so many people out there that need my voice, and, need need my help, and with everything I've learned so far, I feel like I already have so much that I can share and that I can impact people. And so it's really been a thing, a driving force for me, no matter how many times I, have periods where I get depressed and I'm down, I always get back up because I just see that thing at the end of the road where you're like, this is where I'm meant to be. And it's seems hard, but it's really not, because when you're in that receiving energy and you're just like people always say, the only way to fail is to stop trying. And so
Absolutely.
you just have to keep doing it. Even if you're like, what if I fail? What if I, all these things? Just do it anyways. Just do it anyways.
Yes.
Best advice. Just do it anyways.
Yes. And I have changed it to it's never a failure, it's an experiment. I'm just experimenting with different techniques to find that technique that aligns with both me and my client. So it's that opportunity to say, as I'm experimenting, what could I do differently?
Exactly.
Because then it's that mindset shift from a failure to an experiment.
Hmm. And I really agree with that. Like, my best thing I could say, which I have it somewhere, but it would take me a minute to find it. But I've started writing out that list of like, and just do it, based on like, so I have overarching ones of like, okay, these are things I want to work on, like bigger. But then for me, I have the things where I've already done all that work of, here's the smaller steps. But just doing a reflection every day of like, okay, so like for me, I woke up at 8 and I wanted to wake up earlier and get all these things done. I write down okay, what can I do better tomorrow? It's not that like, oh well, I failed, I'm never gonna be able to succeed at this. It's that like, I'm accepting that today it didn't happen for a reason. Maybe I really needed that extra sleep. Maybe I wasn't meant to get up at that for some reason. Maybe I was meant to learn this lesson again, and to really drive that into me, realizing like, okay, what can I do better? It's not a like, oh, I failed. It's just reflecting on it.
Mm-hmm. And so often society wants us to either win or lose. They don't want us to see that there's a lesson there.
Mm.
And so for to integrate so much reflection is, at least for me, that was something new, because I was always told, well, you either made it or you didn't. And so just integrating reflection has been powerful.
I agree. And I had something, hold on. I wanted to, I forget who it was. Sorry about that. I'm a stats person. My issue is sometimes when I first hear something, it takes me a little while to remember of like, okay, this was how many. Um, but one thing that because I just started doing coaching. Um, oh yeah, 2000. Okay, so um, and one of the things that my coach has been, we've only done a couple sessions, but I love it because it's really helping me, with continuing with what I'm doing. And so, one thing he's really said is like, he's like, perfect example. Take Thomas Edison, who created the first light bulb. It took him 2,000 attempts before he finally got to that final product. And so you have to look at that with your life. It's saying, I want to do this. You have to realize you're going to fail. I hate the word fail, but
Yes.
so many times before you finally get there. And same thing with like whoever that's another one my coach mentions is like, whoever created the first cake, it's like they didn't know what things to mix in, and you know what I mean. It took a lot of trial and error. That's just something that you have to realize, that like, it's not going to happen right away. It's going to take a
Yes.
lot of ups and downs. But again, the only way to fail is to stop trying. So as long as you keep trying,
Absolutely.
you never fail.
Absolutely. And another one is to look at, I cannot remember how many attempts, the Dyson
Mm.
vacuum cleaner
Mm.
is another one
Ooh,
before that one finally came on the market.
I haven't heard that one, but I can assume because those things are like crazy. And the
Yes.
same thing with like, have you seen like what is it, the air wrap, where it has like all the different, it's like it's kind of like a blow dryer, but it has different attachments, but it's so fancy,
Hmm.
and that thing costs $800. but I'm sure to figure out that technology behind it because it has like a curling thing that uses suction. It sucks the air around it instead of
Wow.
like regular curling. And I'm sure that took so many trial and errors to figure out how to do that. I mean, for the
Yes.
longest time, we've had these simple, heat it up and you gotta like turn and you know what I mean? And then to have it where it sucks the air up, like, it's so cool to see the videos. It literally sucks it has a suction and it swifts like, you see, it looks so cool, like, the hair just wraps around it, and you just twist and it's just hot air like, blowing out, and I'm just like, "It's cool," but I'm sure that took so long to figure out.
Yeah. And how many prototypes did they have to go through before somebody actually said, yep, this is going to be something that people want?
Right. And how many people will probably singe their hair off testing all those prototypes?
Yes. Yes.
Though I'm sure that was like, well, or it just hopefully they used wigs or dummy or something because 'cause I'm like, I
Yes.
wouldn't wanna be in the middle of those prototypes.
No, I would not want to be the tester there.
No. So, I know we're at that hour mark, and I don't wanna
Yes.
take too much of your time, but, if there was anything that you felt like maybe we didn't share or anything that you wanted to touch on, if you would take another minute and maybe do that. If you don't have anything that you feel like we didn't talk about, that's perfectly fine too.
So, as entrepreneurs, I just want to let everyone know that you have everything within you. And it's just sometimes it takes a little digging to recover and rediscover all the gifts that you hold within you. And don't allow someone else's, you can't do this, to shut you down from living your passion.
100%. I agree with that, especially too, it's so easy to let those voices in, even your own, like, limiting beliefs is the hardest one because, you know, I feel like it's easier to shut out the other voices, it's harder to shut out your own because it's so easy to be hard on yourself and to have those negative thoughts and to be like, "I suck. Why am I," like all these things. And something I shared last night was that another thing to think about is that you're never not gonna have another day of having one of those thoughts. That is just something that's gonna happen as a human being, even if it's for a flicker of a second, you're gonna end up having those. The thing that is important is learning, okay, I'm accepting that this is gonna happen. How can I pick myself up faster than I did last time so that I can recover from this and I can be like, and put a stop on and be like, nope, I acknowledge that I had that thought and that's okay. But now I'm telling myself that it's not true. And just remind yourself that you are capable of a lot more than you think.
Absolutely. And I'm going to challenge your listeners to what John Maxwell does in his 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. He challenges you to write 100 I am statements, all
Mm,
positive, and identifying everything you are because you are more than you think you are.
I love that. I have done the opposite. I have a journal where I wrote all of the limiting beliefs. I actually got a journal that like was meant for that. You have to write them each out. And so something that I've talked about with my coaches and stuff recently is now doing that. We're doing the counteract where I've written down, okay, these are all the things I know I've thought about myself that are limiting beliefs. And now, my goal is to then write those counteracting things of those I am statements that are positive.
And just know that those I am statements can actually take you closer to the goal that you want to achieve because it's who you want to become and desire to become. It's as long as you can visualize that and you can start believing those I am statements, it will get you to who you want to become quicker than you anticipate.
I love that. Well, I thank you so much for coming on tonight. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Last night's episode, I mean, again, I told you I love getting to know people and talking. So honestly, I could talk for probably 5 more hours. But um, I just wanted to thank you again for coming on. And for anyone who may want to reach out to you, if you could just let us know how they could find you.
Yes, so you can find me on Facebook as Michele Shepherd Coy, or Michele Coy Leadership and Business Strategist. And you can find me on LinkedIn as Michele Coy as well.
Perfect. And for this podcast, I mentioned it in the beginning, but we are on quite a bit of platforms. So I've kind of just summed that up. I used to list out each one, but I learned that's kind of lengthy. But yeah, we're pretty much on everything. And soon we will be on TikTok with clips. I'm still working on getting some of those edited for you guys. That was the feedback I had gotten, that you guys, really want to see some highlights from some episodes. So I'm working on getting those out for you. And we appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. And if you wanted to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at Samantha Bailey on Facebook. And that honestly would probably be your best option. Or I do have Instagram and TikTok, but I wouldn't, if you messaged me on there, I wouldn't get it. I deleted the app. Not a good thing to be on for me. You spend too much time on there.
Yes.
But we thank you guys again, and I hope that you have a good weekend. I will see you guys on Monday, and happy early holidays. I know it's going to be Thanksgiving next week, so I hope you guys are all spending time with your family. And we hope you have a good night.
Have a great night, everyone.
Have a good